How have you been growing your ability to think over the years, though?
What a great question. God, I love that question. I have to think about it. I'll speak as a developmental psychologist and as a grandma. Well, I'll tell you a little story.
Yes,
So the other day I was in the car with my 4-year-old grandson. His name is Henry. And Henry was looking out the window at some trees that had no branches on the bottom part. And he said, "Those trees have no branches. Is there a reason for that?" And I was so excited I practically lifted off the seat. I was like rushing to write it down in my notebook, because it was a reminder that very young children, and this I know from my own research, because this is what I do research on as a scientist, young children love to think, and it feels good to think. It feels as good to think as it does to skip or eat or laugh. It just feels good to think. And we unfortunately, the school system often makes kids think they don't like to think. Instead of a cookie, it feels like a vitamin, a medicine, but it's like a cookie. It feels good. And so it feels good to me. I think I'm lucky because I ended up on a path that made that a very obvious part of my everyday life. So writing is, in my experience, writing is the best way to push myself to think, because often I have an idea, I think it's such a great idea, and I sit down to write about it in my new book, and then I write it out and I think it's not a great idea. I can see in the sentences it's a stupid idea, and then I have to start all over. Or I have an idea and then I think, wait a minute, but I have no proof that this is true, or I haven't made an argument that would convince anyone else, and then I realize I have more thinking to do. So for me, writing has been a way to push my thinking. But then I work in a college and I have all these smart young people around me who ask me questions in class, and then I think, wait a minute, whoops, I need to think about that. It's like talking to you. You ask a question, I think, oh, I never thought of that, let me think. So partly it's looking for partners, people to talk to, and wanting to talk to them about interesting things, because besides writing, talking to other people is a way to get your own thinking to be better. And then I would say that I live in a country where there's been incredible political divide. I mean, and my politics I have very strong politics, and there are a lot of people in the last, I'll say, 7 years that I've disagreed with very vehemently. And what that's taught me is how important it is to keep pushing yourself to change your mind. I won't change my mind about everything. There are certain things that have happened in this country in the last 7 years. I know this is probably not what I'm supposed to talk about on your show, but there are things that have happened that I won't change my mind about because I thought they were too terrible, that have to do with human rights and human dignity and equity. But it's also taught me how many people lost the capacity, maybe they never had it, to think about information and other people's point of view and reconsider their own ideas. And so that's another thing that I teach more than I used to. So we were laughing yesterday because my sisters were teasing me that I say all the time in the middle of a discussion, do you think I'm right or do you think I'm wrong? Or do you think I'm wrong about that? And I was saying I do that more than I should. It's like a bad habit to say that because I want my students to realize that I'm old, I'm 64. I still want to be able to ask people if they think I'm wrong. And so, you know, I'm very lucky because I work in a college, so I get to be talking about ideas and thoughts all the time, and I read all the time. But even if you don't, even if you work in a garden or you're in a kitchen cooking, or you, and especially if you teach, you find a way. Like to keep questioning yourself and asking, am I wrong? What would make me wrong? Because I think that helps people be thinkers. And then I wish more people realized that it's more like a cookie and less like a vitamin.